You know what, fellas? We are halfway through the week, but we're also halfway through the season. If you can believe it, I felt like it was just yesterday. We were kicking things off. But, Lugs, I have to ask you, since we are halfway, what is a statement that we wouldn't have believed before the start of the season?
That Tennessee and Alabama would be playing each other, and the loser would have 2 losses already. When you consider all of the talk about the college football playoff and the 12-team inclusion and how much the SEC would be included in terms of the amount of teams we'd be talking about, I don't believe anybody thought we would be at this point. And I also don't think anybody thought we'd see Alabama and Tennessee play the way they've played so far this year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Lugs. And I think my biggest statement is that out of the 3 teams that are the top 5 teams that are in the Big Ten, that Ohio State would be the last ranked out of those top 3 teams in the Big Ten. So look at the AP poll, the top 5, there's 3 teams, right, that are in the Big Ten. But Ohio State being last, to me, that's surprising.
This is what makes it so great, though, Sam. I think that all of what I would call competitive balance top to bottom and the games and the outcomes that we've had, and we haven't even gotten into November yet, and we're going to start talking about teams like Iowa State and Boise State and Indiana, teams would never even been coming out of our mouths with the 4-team college football playoff is what makes this so spectacular.
The fact that Alabama has been beaten by Vanderbilt would have been mine. But Alabama gave up a 14-point lead against South Carolina as they narrowly avoided their 2nd straight Southeastern Conference upset, while Tennessee narrowly avoided getting beaten by unranked Florida, who scored with 29 seconds left and forced an overtime. Now, these 2 teams face each other this weekend, but let's take a look at some analytics here. Alabama's playoff chances would go up significantly to 80%, while Tennessee would see their playoff chances rise to just 20%. Now, ESPN Analytics gives the Tide a 54% chance to win this week by no more than 1 point. So it's going to be a close one. I'd say get your popcorn ready for this one. Now, a lot is at stake here, Lugs. What concerns you the most for this Tennessee team?
I think it's the penalties. I just talked about avoiding errors and not beating yourself with the Georgia-Texas game. 26 penalties over the last 3 weeks for Tennessee. And that's just not winning football. I think the second thing that comes to mind is they have not been able to get off to fast starts in the run game. I know Dylan Sampson is the leading rusher in the SEC, but for the last 2 weeks, they've rushed for 15 yards and 40 yards, all right, in the first half. And they only rushed for 78 yards in the first half against Oklahoma. That's less than 2.8 yards a carry. Well, Tennessee wants to run the football, but here's what ends up happening. When you can't run the football and you're having trouble up front, now it's tough to create those explosive plays. Last 2 weeks, Tennessee's thrown for what? 155 yards on average. So there's no explosive plays because they can't get the run game going. So they got to clean up the penalties and run the football.
To your point, Luke, and not only are there no explosive plays, but it's also the fact that there's negative plays, right? Nico Iamaleava last week was sacked 3 straight plays, 3 plays in a row. And then if that's not a negative, then there are interceptions, there are fumbles. You're seeing him overthrow balls. And so you're seeing some of the youth show up in Nico, the redshirt freshman that we didn't see earlier in the season, right? You see there's nobody in the pocket. There's nobody, no pressure in his face. He has a receiver wide open, and it gets overthrown in this game last week. Later in the game, another opportunity, another overthrow where people are wide open. And so Nico's going to have to not only get settled, but to your point, the running game is going to have to allow him to be able to have more calm and more peace in the pocket to be able to hit his receivers that are getting behind defenders.
Well, I think the looming variable in this game, Sam, is going to be the play of Alabama's secondary. Now, in the last 3 games, they have had 2 game-sealing interceptions in the end zone, but it's because those games have just been unbelievable aerial attacks. They've given up 329 yards on average over the last 3 games. Look, there's a lot of new personnel in this Alabama secondary. They got Keon Sabb from Michigan, Damani Jackson, former top recruit from USC, and obviously Xavier Brown, the true freshman. That group has had moments, but they really haven't gelled together, and that Tennessee offense can expose your secondary if it's not communicated.
Well, and I think another issue with the Tennessee offense is Nico has thrown 1 passing touchdown and 1 interception in his last 3 games, which looks significantly different than what we were seeing in the beginning of the season. All right, 2 must-see matchups are on ABC as part of our triple header that begins at noon, including the Alabama-Tennessee matchup at 3:30 and at 7:30 Eastern. Number 1 Texas hosts number 5 Georgia. What a epic football lineup on ABC and ESPN+.